you've got this guy, a conqueror, who builds the biggest empire the world had ever seen. But how did he do it? Not with fear, not with total domination, but with this totally radical idea: freedom. So today, we're going to dive into the story of one of history's most incredible paradoxes, Cyrus the Great. So right off the bat, you have to ask yourself, how does that even work? How can a guy who wages war, a conqueror, turn around and build an empire that's actually based on, well, tolerance? It seems like a total contradiction. And this wasn't just some clever political move. It was the fundamental tension that defined his entire life. And honestly, it changed the course of history. And this quote from Dr. Roy Casagrande, man, it just nails it. Cyrus wasn't just grabbing land and adding it to a map. No, he was doing something way bigger. He was changing the entire rulebook for how the world worked. He brought this brand new, totally revolutionary idea of what an empire could even be. And that idea, well, it's been echoing through history ever since. All right, so first up, a new kind of conqueror. And look, let's get one thing straight right from the beginning. This guy, Cyrus, he was no saint. We're talking about the ancient world, a world of constant conquest, and he was absolutely an aggressor. But, and this is the key, what makes him so unbelievably fascinating is how he conquered, and even more importantly, what he did after the fight was over. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in the 6th century BC. Cyrus's people, the Persians, are kind of small potatoes. They're a minor kingdom, basically a vassal state, living completely in the shadow of this massive, powerful Median Empire. And the guy in charge of that empire, the big boss, well, it just so happens to be his own grandfather. So here's Cyrus, king of this little territory, and he decides, you know what, I'm not content just being second fiddle. He had this vision that was so much bigger, so much grander. He wanted to unite all the Iranian peoples and create something the world had literally never seen before. So, the million-dollar question, how do you take on a much, much bigger army that's led by your own granddad? Well, not with brute force, that's for sure. You do it with brains. Cyrus was a brilliant strategist. He basically provoked his grandfather, lured the Median army into this perfect ambush in a mountain pass, and bam, he gets this decisive victory. But it's what he does next that is just unthinkable at the time. Instead of executing him or throwing him in a dungeon, he walks up to his defeated grandfather and offers him a partnership. I mean, just stop and think about that. This had never been done before. He basically told his grandfather, look, you're still the king of the Medes, I'll be the king of the Persians, or equals. Can you imagine? This totally bizarre but absolutely brilliant act of grace that became the foundation, the very bedrock of his brand new empire. Now you might be thinking, okay, that was a one-off, right? A special case for his grandpa, but no. This wasn't a one-time thing at all. This radical idea of partnership became his go-to move. It was the philosophy he applied to every single new territory he conquered as he started to expand. And boy, did he expand. We're talking lightning speed. In just 2 decades, Cyrus created the largest empire the world had ever known up to that point. I mean, look at this, a gigantic territory stretching all the way from what we now call Turkey, clear across to Pakistan. It was massive. And this right here, this is what made him a complete game changer. Let's look at the old way of doing things, the model the Assyrians had perfected. It was simple and it was brutal. You conquer a place, you enslave the people, you steal everything they own, and you basically try to erase their culture. Cyrus just threw that whole playbook out the window. Sure, he'd take the money from the state treasury, he wasn't a charity, but he left the people and their private property completely alone. He told them, you're not my subjects, you're my partners, and he gave them all the same rights as any other Persian citizen. So, all these new ideas, they're about to face their biggest test yet. We're talking about his most famous conquest, the incredible city of Babylon. And what happened here, well, this is what would cement his legacy in history forever. Okay, so even the way he took Babylon was just genius. Instead of a long, drawn-out, bloody siege that could last for years, his engineers did something incredible. They just diverted the entire Tigris River, which flowed right under the city's walls. And then, the Persian army just walked right into the city on the dry riverbed. No fight. The city was captured without a single person getting killed. Just amazing. So, after he walks in and takes the city, Cyrus commissions this artifact. We call it the Cyrus Cylinder. Now, what's so cool about it is that it's not some monument bragging about his battles, it's not a list of his victories. Instead, it's a declaration of his principles, his philosophy of government. and he had it buried in the foundation of Babylon's main temple, like a message for all of time. And the things written on this cylinder, honestly, for the ancient world, they are absolutely staggering. Many people consider this the first ever Bill of Rights in human history. It guarantees the right to freedom of religion. He even promised to pay for rebuilding temples of other gods. It abolishes slavery and forced labor. It says that people who were forced from their homes can go back. And maybe the most revolutionary thing of all, it actually puts limits on what the government can do to its own people. Just incredible. So what was the thinking behind all this? It was actually a really simple but powerful idea. Cyrus basically believed that diversity was a strength. He thought an empire with, say, 50 different cultures and 50 different religions would have 50 different ways to solve any problem. It would be more creative, more adaptable, and way more resilient than an empire where everyone was forced to be the same. And look, this wasn't just some abstract theory he wrote down on a piece of clay. This had real-world consequences. A perfect example, the Jewish people. They had been held captive in Babylon for decades. Cyrus freed them. And he didn't just say, okay, you can go home now. No, he went further. He gave them Persian gold and even hired Egyptian engineers to help them rebuild their most secret temple in Jerusalem. That's his philosophy in action, right there. So we come to his enduring legacy. You've got to wonder, right? What happens to a guy like this? And what happens to his radical ideas? Do they just vanish when he's gone? Well, Cyrus died the same way he lived, on the battlefield, but his ideas, they absolutely lived on. The empire he built on this foundation of tolerance was so stable, so prosperous, that when his successors took over, they had zero reason to change a thing. They kept his policies going because they saw with their own eyes that this whole model of respecting diversity, it just plain worked. And his ideas are so powerful, they haven't been forgotten, even today. If you go to the United Nations headquarters in New York, right at the entrance, you'll see a replica of the Cyrus cylinder. Its message has been translated into all 6 official languages of the UN. It's sitting there as a testament, a reminder of this ancient vision for a world built on cooperation and universal human rights. And that really just leaves us with one final thought, one last question to chew on. Here we are in our modern world, still struggling with so much conflict, division, and intolerance. Could it be that this 2,500-year-old model of leadership, from a conqueror who chose partnership over power, could it still hold some answers for us today?